Hello and welcome back to my channel. So my channel is of course about promoting diversity and diversity in the media. I haven't given any context to my personal story and what I've been through, so I thought I would do this initial video on the actual attack up to the point I got to London. Otherwise this video will be way too long. So my attack was in Zanzibar, which is an island off of Tanzania. I was on the island for about 4 weeks and I was teaching English and maths to children from the ages of about 3 to 6. In Zanzibar I was staying in an area called Stone Town, and this was my last day in Stone Town because the following day my friends and I were going up to the north of Zanzibar to celebrate finishing working. So it was the last night on the island. My friend Kirsty and I were on our way out for dinner. At this point the streets were kind of quiet because it was the last night of Ramadan. I was wearing a jumper, a t-shirt, long trousers, socks and trainers. And then 2 guys on a moped drove past on my right hand side and stopped. The guy on the back of the moped kind of gave a half smile, smirk, and within seconds threw acid from my right hand side, then drove off straight away. At this point I could feel my eyes burning, my eyelid especially, so I felt for a bit of dry cloth on my left hand side and just patted down my eyes to make sure I could still see. And for some reason my brain went into a complete rational overdrive and I tried to read the number plate of the motorbike. I couldn't read it at this point because they were too far away, but I do remember seeing the letter J. That was it. And at this point I felt like an immense rush of pain. You know when you put your hand into boiling water and it feels like freezing for about half a second? I felt like a freezing cold pain for about half a second before this immense pain got extreme. And the only way I can describe the pain is a wasp sting, but that times 100, but all over your body. And it was completely unbearable, but a deep pain, not a superficial pain when you kind of just scrape the outside of your skin. I feel like the different layers of your skin being burnt. At first I thought it was boiling hot coffee. That was only because of the smell really. When the pain just got more and more, then I knew straight away that it wasn't coffee and it was definitely acid. And I think that your brain kind of just tells you that whether you know it's acid or not, you know it's a substance that shouldn't be on your skin and shouldn't be on your body and you need to get help. This is all my thoughts broken down. This is all in a few seconds. Remember, I looked at Kirsty and I thought to myself, oh, she looks okay, maybe that means I'm okay. And again, a second later I was like, no, my face is burning, it's obviously not the same and I need to go get help and wash my skin. So I had dropped my phone and my purse when they threw the acid, so I picked them up and I sprinted to a nearby outside bathroom which was part of the restaurant, and I knew it was there because I had actually eaten here quite a few times while I was on the island, so I knew there was an outside bathroom. So I sprinted here, turned on the shower, turned on the taps and everything I could find and just started dousing myself in water, washing as much as possible. And at this point I was screaming at the top of my lungs for help. I was repeating, can someone help me? Can anyone hear me? I need help. No one was coming and it was maybe about 3-4 minutes. So at this point I spaced out how often I was yelling, so I knew I was speaking really clearly. While this was happening, half my clothes had burnt off from the acid. They had burnt through all my trousers and the jumper as well, so I had to remove everything. So I was essentially stark naked in the middle of a Muslim country on the last day of Ramadan, panicking about this. 2 tourists came running towards the bathroom, one called Nadim and one called Sam, and they came with huge litre bottles of water because Nadine had a really bad stomach bug. We were dousing myself in this bottled water. At this point Sam had put my phone and my purse in his pockets just so I knew that they were safe, but actually my purse started to burn through his trousers and burn his skin. At this point Kirsty found where I was because there was about 15-20 people standing outside this bath. We went in about a 2-minute cab to the first hospital where we were dousing ourselves with saline, which is kind of like disinfectant salty water in packets. And then I remember the packets were quite small, so we went going through all the packets, and at this point Sam had called everyone we knew on the island. Also at this point called our parents to inform them of what had happened, who then started to arrange our medical care to get us back to London. At this point there were a few British tourists who came to help us. Half of them were drunk, and then the hospital ran out of saline, so we had to think as quickly as possible and go to the nearest place where we could get clean running water. So we went to a hotel that was quite nearby. I was in so much agony, I could barely speak, and I remember we were sitting in the cab in the way to this hotel, and Kirsty turned around to me and she said, "What's happening? Like, what the fuck?" And I remember putting my hands in my head and like leaning against the front seat. I was sitting in the back and just thinking to myself, I can't speak, I can't reply. Some of the acid had gone into my mouth, so all my lips were swollen, my mouth, my tongue was so swollen. I turned white. We arrived and they wouldn't let us into a room. We had to stand in the outside showers for about 2.5 to 3 hours at this point. There were many locals like standing outside who were like trying to film us, and it was all very overwhelming and very strange. I had no energy, no strength. I was sitting on the floor, and I remember turning to Ben, who was one of our friends who was helping me, and I said to him, honestly, this is so unbearable. It would just be easier not to have to cope with this. And like, it sounds really morbid to say it out loud, but the pain was so unbearable. I thought the pain would never end. I thought I would never feel normal. That was like a genuine thought process. I would just count to 10 over and over again, sit in the shower in silence with Ben to make time go a bit faster, because I didn't even know what to do. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how to act, because the sun had obviously set at this point and the water was freezing cold. I was like uncontrollably like shivering and shaking, and my lips were turning blue, so we had to all go inside because I was about to pass out basically. At this point the hotel saw how in a bad state I was, so let us go and use one of their rooms and be in the warm, and so stood in the bathroom there washing more. At this point a local doctor came up and said, you need to go to another hospital, which is what we were going to do anyway, but it was just arranging that happening. So when that was arranged, we were covered in bed sheets and walked down there. So we got an ambulance and we went to a runway to get on a small aeroplane which took us to mainland Tanzania. That was the only way to get there, to Dar es Salaam to go to another hospital. I remember we were sitting in this ambulance and I was lying down on the back, and at one point even the back doors opened. Literally, if I wasn't strapped in, I would have flung out the back of the ambulance. So the driver had to get out, close the doors. We got on this tiny aeroplane, the 6 of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 6 of us. As soon as we got off the aeroplane, we were on the runway, and I remember I just vomited everywhere. I was so sick. I think it was the smell, the adrenaline and the shock and pain. To the second hospital where we were seen by some doctors and some nurses who told me at that point that I wouldn't need any surgery and that all my burns were superficial and I didn't need to worry about anything. Little did they know I was about to have 80 plus operations and have 2 months in hospital in an isolated room. We were in that hospital for maybe about 12 hours while everyone was arranging the transport to get back to London, because at this point I was too unwell to get on a commercial flight, so we needed to get on a Medevac, which is kind of like a medical airplane. Got on the Medevac back to London with 2 doctors, where they completely doused me with medication and painkillers, and I was on drip the whole way back. We had to stop off 4 times because the plane was so small, so it needed to keep being refueled. We stopped off in Nairobi, we stopped off in Egypt, Italy, where else I can't remember. We stopped off in Egypt when I went to the bathroom for the first time, and at this point I was completely unrecognisable. My face was so swollen and I just could not wait to get back to London. I needed to be home and I needed my family, and I just needed to be in like the hands of like doctors and surgeons. I landed in Norfolk where I was reunited with my family who met us on the runway, and then got on an ambulance and went straight to Chelsea and Westminster, where I was then an inpatient for more or less 2 months, but I continued to have medical treatment, which I'm still having, which is like nearly like 4.5, 5 years later. Ian and Sam completely saved my life. I mean, I don't know what I would have done without them. I don't even know if I would be alive, honestly. They helped arrange everything, and my reaction is like crazy, the whole flight or fight response, which I've spoken to my therapist about a lot. And my response was completely fight. It was not flight at all. I thought in a very rational way. I'm extremely open and extremely honest about the whole story. So if you have any questions, then I'm so happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe for more videos.